Welcome to this OU Equip class. Equip classes are short courses in practical faith formation that are meant to help you live out your faith in your everyday life. This is a class on holy friendships. We'll be looking in the first class on the need, the second on Wesleyan models of discipleship that emerged from the 18th century, which is a deep thread and seam of rich wisdom in Christian spirituality. And then in the third session, we'll be talking about ways in which we might live out holy friendships now. So I invite you to not only watch this particular session, but to come back for the next two as well. In a book entitled Lost Connections, How We Got Depressed and Where We Find Hope, Johann Hari, who was a young British man who was struggling with depression and anxiety and trying to find the root cause, not only in his own life, but in the Western world, began realizing that every answer that he had been given for his own depression and anxiety was not sufficient for his own experience. He took his first antidepressant when he was 18 years old, and over the course of more than a decade, he began trying to figure out how to deal with the deep sense of sadness that he was experiencing. He would walk into rooms with a lot of people, but he would feel all alone. Over the course of his 30s, he began exploring a range of studies on questions of depression and anxiety. And he discovered an interesting dimension to the conversation that he had not thought about before. What he found was that even though the predominant research in the field suggested that depression and anxiety was rooted in a chemical imbalance in the brain, his personal experience and some emerging research suggested that it was more than that. That it was rooted in a series of lost connections. Now, I can't go into the whole range of his argument and the research that he looked at, but I just want to focus on one dimension of it, and that's a deep sense that in the Western world, we're lonely. Perhaps you feel that as well. Perhaps you've been in a place where you feel like you're disconnected from those who are close to you, maybe even those in your family. You go out into the wider world and you can go to a stadium with a full of people cheering and yelling, and you can feel a part of a tribe of people, but you have a hard time making friends. In fact, one of the things that Johann Hari found was that there's been some research done on in America about the sense that American adults have that they have confidants in their life. That question's been asked for a number of years. Do you have close confidants? It used to be that folks would say, yes, I have 3 or 4 close confidants, people that I can be honest with and vulnerable with. And today it's more like 0 or 1. So what happened? Well, there are a lot of things that contribute to it, and sociologists and politicians have been looking at this epidemic of loneliness and depression and anxiety in our society. But the question of loneliness at the heart of it, I think, is one that the church needs to deal with. Frankly, we sometimes do it well, and sometimes we do it poorly. If you're a single person and you've walked into a church full of programs for children and families, maybe you felt like that. Maybe you are a person of color and you've walked into an all-white church and you've felt like that. Maybe you've walked into a church and seen a room full of people with nice clothes on and you've felt like that, like you're out of place, like you don't quite fit. I think a lot of these dimensions of loneliness are only exacerbated by our current situation. I'm filming this today at the beginning of May 2020 in Oxford, Mississippi, as we experience a global pandemic, which has not only disrupted our lives and caused immense heartache and pain and suffering for folks who have been infected with coronavirus, but it's also exposed, I think, as we shelter in place, as we kind of move away from one another in social isolation, how deeply we need social connection, how much we at physical distance need social connection with one another. And if that's the case for you, I wonder if one of the places that you can look for help, one of the places that you can look for an answer to what ails you is simply the category and the reality of human friendship. Seems pretty simple, right? Friendship seems natural for children. There's a ball in a playground, and the two of them see the ball there, and instantly there's a friendship that strikes up. Perhaps you go to school and you find that you have common interests with other people, and you develop a friendship over that. Or you run into the same people in the coffee shop, and you strike up acquaintances that grow into friendships. But I think there's something different about the kinds of friendship that the Christians have talked about that emerge in Christian fellowship. They're a deeper kind of sharing, a deeper kind of vulnerability and honesty. You see it in the New Testament. In each gospel, you have a group of people that are called out of their life and into friendship with Jesus. The disciples are their names, and those are the people who are following Jesus as teacher and Lord. But over the course of 3 years, they develop a deep relationship with Jesus. They push back on him at times. They ask him questions about prayer and life, and they even challenge him to give him a place, in a place of status and honor when Jesus comes into his kingdom. At the end of the day, when Jesus truly needed his friends, at the end of his life, when he was in Jerusalem on the night before he died, what happened was that his friends let him down. They abandoned him, and they scattered. They denied him, and they betrayed him. He dies and rises again, and the first people that he comes to are his friends. He comes to offer them peace. Wherever they are, scattered as they were throughout Jerusalem, he comes and offers them peace, and the one who you would think would offer condemnation. Why did you do this to me? In fact, he offers the opposite. He offers them forgiveness, and he offers them reconciliation. Who among us has not had a friend who has let us down? Someone who has betrayed us or denied us or abandoned us? There's something that happens, though. Jesus offers them forgiveness and reconciliation, and he says, wait in the city. Wait in the city of Jerusalem until the Holy Spirit comes. And when the Holy Spirit comes, there will be power that will be at the heart of your connections. And you will be my witnesses from here to the ends of the earth. At Pentecost, when the Holy Spirit comes, Peter stands up and preaches and says, men of Judea and all of you in Jerusalem, this is not what you suppose. It's only 9 o'clock in the morning. These folks are not drunk. They're empowered by the Holy Spirit. They see something new, that the one who you crucified, Jesus Christ, is risen from the grave. And if that's the case, then everything is possible. There were 3,000 people that joined together with the early church and were baptized. They repented, they believed, they were baptized. And then in Acts chapter 2, verse 42, you hear that they began to share their life together. They broke bread together daily. They prayed together. They studied the apostles' teaching, and they fellowshiped in a deep and rich way. Day by day, they shared their life together. It's that kind of friendship that I long for. It's the kind of friendship that I wonder if you long for as well. I think it's the deepest response that the church has to what ails our society. The despair, the lack of hope, the lack of a sense of connection is rooted, I think, in a profound kind of loneliness that we can respond to as Christians. So if you're a person who needs that kind of connection, I encourage you to seek it out, to go to your church and ask what is available. And if you're a leader of a Sunday school class or a life group or a men's or women's Bible study, or if you desire to be one day, I wonder if you could begin thinking of yourself as the kind of person who is cultivating holy friendships. The kinds of friendships, not simply where you're sharing, in a common interest or even just living close and in proximity to one another, but the kind of friendship where you can begin to share deeply in life together, where you can look out, sit on the front porch together and drink a cup of iced tea, and you can begin to look out the world and see the same world together. That you can challenge one another where you need to be challenged, where you can support one another where you need to be supported, and where you can help one another dream the kinds of dreams that you wouldn't have otherwise dreamed. It's to that reality that I want to turn. But before we get to what's possible here and now, I want to look back for a moment at the very beginning, the genius and the fire that was there at the beginning of one particular branch of Christianity, the Methodist movement, the early Methodist movement in England in the 18th century. We'll look at two individuals and the community that gathered around them, John and Charles Wesley, and the early Methodist movement. So I invite you back for that conversation.